other side of the bearing. So we fitted the thrust washer with the bearing, and we fit the counterbalance. Oh, fit the key. So put the key towards the bottom with a notch at the top in order to allow easy removal. So you fit the counterbalance with the bearing contact pad facing upmost and engage. So you have to play with the key. You just put the key in a little bit too far, something that you can get them to resist. Okay, so we have one counterbalance. And then we can fit the eccentric, which has had the inner race of the bearing pressed in, just to make sure that the eccentric is flush, evenly positioned within the bearing.
Right.
So we can fit the bearing over, it doesn't matter which way up, it'll only go one way. And when we've done that, we then fit the outer race of the main bearing. And then we've also fed all the connecting rods around the retaining ring, make sure they're nice and smooth, there's no burrs on the inner contact points of the con rods, and then slip that over bearing, juggling, and there we go, that's fitted. And then we fit the other counterbalance, obviously again with the bearing contact face touching the bearing.
All on that keyway, right?
Yeah, it's all on that key. And then we fit the sleeve from the inner bearing out of the lid, the washer, the steel washer, and then the M20 nut.
And then you've got to torque that nut, right?
We'll torque that nut to 100 foot-pounds.
The torque wrench you got from this torque wrench you got over here for $17 there. That one there.
Okay. And you can audibly hear and feel work.
Yeah, probably.
Anybody call from the railroad Newport? Fred and Iris
No,
call?
I talked to them in Lugo.
Right, basically
They will be coming out
the
tomorrow.
barrels have all been pre-assembled and are ready for assembly into the plumber. What we do is we fit the lower O-ring on and make sure you grease that well. Don't worry about how much grease is on it, just nice and adequately. So what we want to do is to do all the bottom. Obviously the shorter part is the bottom that feeds through the pump crankcase, so we'll do all the barrels like that. Okay. The pump crankcase with the oil cooler hole and obviously the top port facing up, we put the first barrel A opposite to the side.
Is it critical that you start off in this way, or can you go in?
You can do any order.
You can do any order, as long as you get them in sequence.
That's right. You just got to try and find the right place for them. Right. So we've got A, 8-cylinder barrel order. Then it goes D. Make sure they sit down. B and D. You just have to watch when you're rotating around with the con rods, don't actually strike and lock anything. Barrel F. Barrel G. Barrel H. Barrel K. Barrel M. Right, now comes the fiddly bit. You have the gudgeon pins.
When you guys take a break, I need to do some drilling over here.
But we need to fit the, helps if you fit one circuit. Onto the gudgeon pin, and we'll start off with barrel A. So you just have to work around.
Okay, so you put the circlip on and then you slide it up from underneath, right?
So what comes the juggling bit? Just feeding the pistons out and just easing the gudgeon, the connecting rods up just to locate it. So. One thing perhaps we should have done before we did this was to make sure that the gudgeon pins would go through the connecting rods.
Nick, where's the keys to the Jeep?
In it. From wherever you had it, Bill. You had it last, right? Maybe it's just a little bit cocked out.
Yeah.
Trying to help you load it. Bring two.
At the moment I'm having great difficulty getting the first gudgeon pin through, so I'll just try it from the top first. Maybe push out a burr. Okay, it's gone through. Here she comes. There's the nut.
It's just lining everything up.
There we go.
And never reuse the circlip if you've taken it off, right?
Alright. Yep.
Screwdriver.
No. Use the pliers. And what you have to do is just to make sure that the circlip is engaged, and one of the ways you usually check that is to try and push the gudgeon pin up and down quite hard. And if the circuit's not located, you will probably push it through.
There you go.
Okay, the simple double check that you've got the barrels in the correct place is to place the oil filler holder at the top and then check that all the bleed holes are facing in that direction. We've connected up all the gudgeon pins and we'll just go around and double check each one to make sure it's securely located. And the other thing we'll do is we'll just check that the piston ports are opening on each barrel just to make sure it's working, and there's a quick rotation of the pump to tell you if anything's touching or knocking and everything's going smoothly.
Is it best to throw a little squirt of oil on it before you do this?
No.
Doesn't matter?
No. No, that's okay. So, one of the other things we'll do is to fit the oil cooler. So we just place that into the chamber. Feel free to step forward if I do anything wrong with it. Fit the upper barrel O-rings. And as with the lower ones, liberally
Grease them
coat
up.
them with grease. Don't be afraid to use too much. Notice there's not much of a lead in from there for the O-ring. Used to have a lot more of a chamfer on the pumps, arm ones. You see that? It's almost sharp. We used to have at least a sort of, you know, one. Oh. Okay, so we've just greased up the O-rings, check everything's okay. Now we get the lid. And what we do is we use some 103 section O-ring, cut it to 44 7/8 inches, and then use super glue to glue the ends together. What we do with that O-ring is to make sure that we place a join in the O-ring at the top of the pump, which will coincide with the oil cooler. So place that O-ring in the groove with a join at the top, and then, as before with all the O-rings, don't be afraid, use plenty of grease. That'll help the O-ring slide into position. Seem a long way around here. we go. Okay. Obviously, you can't position it in the wrong place. What you need to do is position the oil cooler pipe over the oil cooler. The O-rings are on the barrels, and it's just a matter of feeling the lid over, making sure it's getting onto the bearing okay. And there we are, nearly down. What we can sometimes do